So the Oklahoma City bombing, in 1995, the Alfred P. Murrah building, Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building, sorry, was bombed on April 19th at 9:02 a.m. There was a truck packed with explosives parked outside the north face of the building, and when it exploded, 167 people died. 19 of which were children in the building's daycare. So the entire north face of the building was destroyed, and countless other buildings in the vicinity of the explosion were also destroyed. The response started immediately, and first responders appeared, one of whom died and became the 168th death of the explosion. They were able to save most of the people inside the building, except for the 167. And the process they used to rescue everyone became known as the Oklahoma Standard, and it was used in the 2001 9/11 bombing to get everyone out. As everyone was going in, people who were on the sidelines started creating small memorials around the outside of the explosion site, which were like piles of flowers, stuffed animals, notes, anything. And they stayed there for the entire time the response was going on and encouraged people and kept a sense of hope around the area. The rest of the building was demolished in May 23rd, and a chain link fence was erected surrounding the site, and that became the new memorial, where people would hang poems, notes, messages, ticket stubs, keychains, anything. And after a few months, popular demand was to create a full memorial covering the entire site, and the governor created a 350-man task force to come up with ideas for the memorial. And they came up with the line, "To remember those who were killed, those who survived, and those changed forever." And that's become the memorial. The memorial is an outdoor symbolic area which has 168 empty chairs for each person who was killed, and an interactive museum describing what happened, who did it, and the way that Oklahoma City bounced back. And then one of the best things about the memorial is the survivor tree, which is that tree that was right across the street from the explosion and somehow still survived. Saplings from this tree have been planted all over the city of Oklahoma and all over the state of Oklahoma since. The two men who were prosecuted for the bombing were Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols. Timothy McVeigh was sentenced to death, and Terry Nichols was sentenced to life without parole. Terry Nichols, he's still alive today, and he's made several allegations post-conviction. His mother claims that he had Asperger's syndrome and didn't know what he was doing with the bombs. And Nichols himself claims that McVeigh pressured and frightened him into helping him with the bombing. But so far, nothing has been lifted from his sentence.
Are you supposed to take some people?
The way that the bombing has affected society, what I mentioned was the Oklahoma Standard. The Oklahoma Standard, the way that they responded to the bombing immediately with first responders and firemen and ambulances, has become something that all other tragedies have aspired to be able to save as many people as possible. And one of the best examples of that was the 9/11 bombing, where people came almost immediately and were able to save hundreds of people, whereas it is believed that without the Oklahoma City bombing, not nearly as many people would have been saved. And actually, many of the firefighters, after the buildings had collapsed, that came from all over the world, not over the world, all over the country to New York, many of them were Oklahoma City firemen and EMT and people who just came to help. And then one of the best symbols of endurance is the survivor tree, as I mentioned before. It had almost all of its branches blown off. It was impaled by glass and debris, and was blackened by fire from cars parked underneath it. People thought there was no way it could have survived. But almost a year later, the survivors were taking a picture near the tree, and they noticed that it was starting to bloom again. And now, you can see in the photo, it's really starting to thrive again. And it's still standing today. It's almost 100 years old. And then also, because of this bombing, America's eyes have really been opened to terrorism happening in the U.S., especially domestic terrorism. And there were many policies and thoughts about how these things could be prevented. And it's thought that without these policies, there would be many more bombings than we have now. Thank you.
Cool, thank you. Good, good.